Hi, everybody. I'm Jesse.
Hello, and I'm Brian.
Hi, I'm Adam, and King Kong ain't got shit on me.
And this is Boring Conversation.
Yes, Queen.
Welcome to Boring Conversation, a Malifaux podcast.
Hello, and welcome back to Boring Conversation. I'm going to host today. My name is Adam. Here with me is Brian from Schemes and Stones, and my co-host Jesse. And they played a game of the setup phase in a cross-promotional podcast off. This is the second game. Myself and Kyle from Schemes and Stones played the game earlier. And we're going to discuss the outcome of their game and what they took, why they took it, some highlights, some lowlights, and their pretty much their thoughts on each other's crews and the keywords in general. So, first things first, it is boring conversation. Jesse, what are you drinking?
Today, I'm drinking a wonderful little beer, Allagash Tripel Belgian Golden Ale. Clocking in at 9%, highly carbonated, and absolutely delicious.
That doesn't sound too bad.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, I mean,
Damn good.
I wouldn't turn it away. Brian, what you got?
So nothing that fancy. I have some Captain Morgan rum, one of their specialty things right now, super vanilla-y, and I mixed it with. My dad told me about this, some Sprecher root beer, which is this little brewery from about a mile where I grew up, known for its root beer. I love it. Grew up on the stuff. Mixed it together, and it's very good. Like it's like liquid vanilla almost, and it's just phenomenal with just a little bit of the alcohol coming in from the rum, but the flavors work really well. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, it sounds like something that'd be just incredibly dangerous.
I I mean, yeah. Um I might die tonight depending on how many more of these I have, but the first one's only it was like 4 shots. So
Yeah.
I'll be fine.
So, Brian, I got to ask, after our game, have you had another Guinness and tried the inverted pour technique that I
I
told you
have
about?
not. I normally only buy Guinness bottles. The can I had was kind of a fluke. My mom had mailed me a single can of Guinness. Is kind of weird. I was very surprised opening this package.
It's like
I
getting a
have
coconut
not
in the
though.
mail.
Yeah, pretty much. And I gotta get around to getting some and trying that out because I didn't know how you open a nitrous can, and that's direct pour down. I gotta
Yeah, there
try it
we go.
out.
So yeah, public service announcement to anybody who likes to drink anything on nitro that's served from a can or from a bottle, because you can have nitro bottles, and that's nitro coffee, draft Guinness in a can, that kind of thing. To get the perfect pour, you take your can or bottle and you completely invert it and pour straight down into the glass, and that's how you get the nice cascading foam. If you try and pour it like a regular beer, it'll never be right. So there you go. You learn something.
Well, I'm drinking the Macallen edition number 5 Highland single malt Scotch.
Ooh,
It's one of those days.
nice.
Yeah, I'm going highbrow today, guys.
Oh,
Highbrow. But no, my gift from my brother-in-law. So, uh, yeah, just drinking that nice and
ooh,
neat. But yeah, I
nice.
mean that's how we start things off here on the boring conversation. We talk about anything but Malifaux.
Hmm.
So, all right, guys, let's get into the game. This is what I want to know. What's the score? What did it come down to?
It was a spanking, 8-3 for the dirty, ungentlemanly Ivan against my Vix, and it yeah, 8-3. It was a thrashing.
Oh yeah, so I mean, 8-3. It was a pretty wild game, and it's one that like the points and the scoring didn't really materialize until pretty late in the game. So I
Yeah,
think it played out kind of interestingly. It was really really tight until basically turn 4, and then things changed.
imploded.
Imploded. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Okay, so just to recap, the strategy was symbols of authority. Scheme pool was assassinate, claim jump, research mission, spread them out, and take prisoner. Jesse, what did you take for schemes and why?
So the one of the things that um, Brian and Kyle do on the setup phase eps is they give each guest the opportunity to basically pick one of the schemes in the pool so that every crew is going to have at least one scheme that it's well suited to. So I picked research mission. Um, research mission's really, really strong for Umbra because of the amount of shadow markers that they can drop fairly easily, and then they're just going to generate other markers incidentally throughout the course of the game. So I picked research mission. I did end up taking it. I also chose claim jump on Mr. Mordrake, which is exactly what I expected to do, pretty much regardless of what crew Brian took. Unless he took Mad Dog, then I would consider maybe not taking research mission, but he didn't take him. So
Mhm.
it went research mission and claim jump on Mordrake.
Brian, what'd you take?
So I also had selected research mission as my go-to scheme. Just because kind of that general game plan was I'm gonna kill my opponent, so they're gonna drop bodies I can use. There's gonna be symbols, and I'm intending to rapidly get across the board. So I'll have more models than I've on the opponent's side than I've picked up symbols. So I'll be able to score it, and he puts out all of these markers for me. So I was able to score a point on that. I also took spread them out because, again, thinking I was going to have that speed factor and predicated on the idea I was going to be murdering things, I figured I would have some AP to spare and could drop. I'm spreading out with all my fast Vic models and drop some markers, and that did not pan out.
Yeah, so I mean, I was Jesse's schemes that he picked. I mean, I think you're gonna see those picked 90% of the time with Dua. I mean, research missions just almost an auto take, and then with claim jump, I mean, with Mordrake just never dying, he's a perfect target for it because he is significant, which I think is a problem. But I mean, I digress. I think you're gonna always see that with those two. I agree with research mission. You take a research mission as well, though, because playing Sandeep, that was something that commonly happened to me because I'd be dropping markers all over the place, and some of them would be in my backfield, and sure enough, I'm setting it up for my opponent to just come on over and score it off of me. So that I mean, I think that was a very good pick in that. So it was standard deployment. Who was the attacker? Who was the defender?
I was the attacker,
Yeah.
which I think actually we'll talk about that more in a minute. But I think that me kind of winning the flip, so to speak, for attacker had a huge impact on the game, which is exactly what I kind of talked about in the first episode because I got to pick my deployment, and yeah, I don't know if Brian agrees, but I think it had a very very large impact on the way the game played out.
Yeah, I think it it wasn't a huge problem for me. Like like there's not really a bad side on this map, so to speak. Uh, but it is nice being able to react a little bit with that deploying first. As I put some models out, I get to see my entire opponent's lineup and can kind of get a sense on where they're leaning, and then I can deploy the other halves. Like that initiative you generate from deploying first, really, it's hard to quantify, but it is there.
I think that being able to, especially with his list with the Deso engine, that's obviously set for an Alpha Strike, and with Hans
Mm-hmm.
being able to split up your forces and kind of counter deploy based on where his stuff is would be extremely helpful.
Yeah, and I would say that having the opportunity to set up some of the big hitters second is, and that's always going to be good for an Alpha Strike crew, especially. But the reason that I think that it had a much bigger impact on the game than I think even in Brian may realize, or maybe he doesn't agree, but so I don't know if you guys are looking at the map, but if you take a look at Western Tracks, which is the map that we used on Vassal, the way that it's set up is you've got a very large forest which takes up basically the entirety of the board between the center line and my deployment edge. So that gives me a very large piece of severe concealing terrain that I can basically plant Ivan in, and he can project threat, but it's going to cost my opponent a ton of movement trying to get to him. And it also so it gives him a kind of a position of relative safety, at least one that's going to buy him a turn before big hitters get to him. And it means that he's not relying on his own shadow markers to get concealment when shooting at enemies. And I think this plays a significant role in why, excuse me, in why some maps are going to be much more conducive to Ivan wins, or much make him much stronger. And I kind of talked about that a little bit before. So like for instance, if I had gotten the right hand side, let's say Brian had chosen first and he had decided to take the right side, and I ended up on the left. So now if I'm on the left, I still have a big forest, but it's way back in my deployment zone, and I'm only able to get Ivan at best about 3 inches into the field before he runs out of forest to shoot through, or to hide in. So that's really going to reduce the amount of the board that he can affect with relative impunity. And if we had deployed top to bottom, the kind of the real nightmare situation is we end up deploying top to bottom. Brian goes first and picks top, and I get stuck on the bottom with a forest that's way off on the left flank and isn't far enough into the board to give me a really good kind of firing radius with Ivan. If I had ended up on top, which I don't think Brian would have given me, I would have been in a similarly advantageous position, but with a couple of big pieces of terrain to block line of sight. So I that's kind of a long-winded explanation of why I feel like me getting the initiative and getting to choose that deployment zone was more of an impact on this game than I think a lot of others that I've played with this crew, or really any other. So I don't know, Brian. Do you think I'm just talking out of my ass here, or
No, I think you're right. Like in scouting the map, I had wanted the top, uh, just because the concealing terrain somewhat that denies you being able to use it, but on the receiving end, you would basically have like two singular lanes to come through up towards me with one massive blocking train separating your wings. So that would give me a moment if I got the top to charge both lanes, and potentially you wouldn't be able, one lane can't support the other on the attack. So yeah, I would have gone the top if I had won it. Because that that big piece of jungle was the bane of my existence the entire game, because um I couldn't do anything about it. Like, you go stand in it and I'm going to spend 2 actions getting engaged with you, and then a single attack which you pop a shadow marker next to you for 0, and then you kill the thing that is bad touching you.
right? Yeah, and to your point, if you had taken top, you would have been able to largely circumvent that large piece of terrain.
Yeah.
Your crew is fast enough that you would have been able to get to the far right flank, which I couldn't afford to deploy on the right flank.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, really, I couldn't afford to deploy on either of the two flanks because I got that big tower in the middle
Right.
that would have split my forces. And my crew really needs to be close enough together on first turn to be able to support each other.
Exactly.
Where, like, I basically would have sacrificed an entire flank and for sure given you a freebie symbol, which I couldn't. There's one symbol that I would not have been able to stop you from getting, and you would have potentially gotten two symbols with relative inability on my part to respond to that. So
Yeah.
that I think made a big difference. Yeah. So There we go. There's the probably the most long-winded discussion of attacker defender that you're going to hear in most games.
I think going into a game with Ivan, you have to look for where those forests. You're gonna have to look for those areas of concealing terrain, um, and it's incredibly beneficial to him because it sets him up where he has the concealing. He doesn't need to go through his markers. He can conserve any markers he does have for preventing damage and etc. But I think also once you see more Ivan, it's going to also be a predictable spot where he's going to be.
Yes.
So you know that there's that concealing piece of terrain near the center of the table. I know Ivan's going to end up in there, and if I can set something up there where he can't go in there, then I'm still kind of winning.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's one thing that like it's going to come down to counter picking and looking at the table. And this is kind of talking a little bit about more like anti-ES talk in general, but like if you see a big forest specifically, because those are going to be the most common pieces of concealing severe terrain you'll see on any wargaming table. Like Vassal's a different animal. You're going to see all sorts of crap like steam clouds and fog banks and stuff like that. You don't see those kind of things on regular tabletops. You're going to see forests because that's what shots have. That's what works as terrain. So if you see Ivan on the other side of the table, you really want to consider and you see big patches of terrain like that, you really want to consider taking something that has like unimpeded or the ability to leap or the ability to teleport or flight, because those are actually relatively strong against him because you won't lose all that AP trying to get to him before you can take swing.
Yeah, and that was one.
Snipers.
Yeah, good ranged guns. And that was one I think, like this was the second time I'd seen Ivan on the table. So, it's one of those like I know now how crucially important that is. But it's one where I know to get that tech piece, especially playing Mercenaries with Vix, get we don't have unimpeded in Outcast, so you need incorporeal, and they're overcosted on a keyword. Ashes and Dust is good for as out a keyword, but he still dies fast and irreducible with Brock Inspectors, which you can summon off of him, eat him, and then eat the core. So I didn't want to bring Dashing Core. And Diving Charge for Eric and Von Scheel. Well, I'm not paying 16 stones for Von Scheel on this, even though he's great in symbols. I'm already playing Vix. It's expensive. And Eric, again, same with the Brock Inspector. Brock Inspectors just eat him alive and then he's dead. But yeah, I wish I had kind of understood in advance that I could have pressured you more once you got situated in that forest, because I couldn't knock you out of it. Now, part of the reason I couldn't knock you out of it is I lost my... I effectively lost both Vix by the third activation of turn 2.
Yeah.
Which, to go into like the core of the game, everything else, regardless of how the game played, if nothing else had changed with that game, had I had one of the Vix actually doing things for me, I think you probably still have the game, but I score much more points because I was just so the entire game down on AP. I didn't have quality AP to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think total Vix attacks, I think you got 3 total attacks between the 2 Vix the whole game.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yep. Because you swung. No, you got 2 because you never got to swing with Boss Vic.
Right.
And you walk charged with Little Vic, and that was it.
Right, and then turn 2, she never activated because
you went for the point first.
I went for the points and to deny your summon activating, so you had to use like core AP, not free AP. And that was the insane thing. Like, so turn 1, you summoned a Dave.
I summoned a Brocken.
Oh, right, because you shot Taylor. Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You moved Taylor up and around the little central tower, and I was able to shade step Ivan towards the end of the turn to the point that he could tag Taylor, hit her, summon to Brocken. You swung back at it with Taylor and hit it for freaking 6, which was brutal, by the way. Um,
And well, and that was the thing. Like I had whatever you summoned off of the Vicar Taylor, whatever. She was 4 inches, 5 inches out of deployment. Like not far up the board. Like she was not even. She was 3 or 4 inches off the center line, and you, without activating Ivan, were already in range. Well, after the leap, yeah, without spending AP.
because I got a push from the Intrepid Effigy. I deployed about 3 inches back from my deployment line because I was playing real cagey. I wanted to make sure that you didn't have a charge first turn, and you didn't have a good shot with Hans first turn. So we played real cagey. We stalled activations. Eventually, my Intrepid Effigy moved Ivan up about 3 inches with lead the way. I didn't even go the full 4. Then he shade stepped another 6, and now he's in range to shoot Taylor with all 3 of his AP.
Right. And it was insane because you shot Taylor. I placed that messed up. You're shooting her again. I put the Brock into 2, which is great, and then the Vic died because you shot Taylor, which is like that chain of events is just insane. But Brocken irreducible. You got her down to what, 2 wounds, I think.
Yeah, what happened was, so I shot Taylor with the first AP, summoned the Brocken. Taylor placed in such a way that I couldn't shoot her again. Hit the Brockens, hit severe for 6, so you knocked it down to 2. And then I was like, shit, I need to get some kind of use out of the Brocken, and it wasn't in a good position for me to be able to support it. So I used Encroaching Shadows on Ivan to push the Brocken through both of your Vics and maybe give them distracted. Um, you ended up passing both your tests, but I stoned for the cut them down trigger so that the Brocken got to take an attack, and he hit Master Vic for 4 irreducible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then I also shot Master Vic again and dropped her down to 2 wounds. And staggered her, which was the thing. The stagger on Master Vic was the thing that kind of broke your plan first turn, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, because one of the combos with the Vix is when a Vic activates, if the other Vic is within 6 inches, you can place the non-activating Vic in base contact. So had she not been staggered, I could have yoinked her out back into my backfield in essence, or somewhere that was not in range of whatever. And I couldn't. Or set that up for next turn. I can leap forward. I have double Vic. I can companion, and together maybe they kill Corvus or Ivan. One of the two, because 6 attacks going into Ivan, that probably punches through. That doesn't happen. She's staggered. I can't set it up. And then what last activation? Because we monkeyed around, you were able to bury her unresisted.
Yeah. What ended up happening was, so because the Brocken moved through the 2 Vics, he ended up close enough to Big Vic that when Little Vic activated, she charged, killed the Brocken. Because of the summon upgrade on the Brocken, it dropped a shadow marker in base contact with Big Vic. And then I had given Mordrake fast with Gibson.
Yeah.
So Mordrake, Shade Step, walk, charge, got one swing on Big Vic and hit the trigger to bury her in the shadow marker that got dropped because the Brocken got killed. And then I was able to kill Little Vic before she got to activate turn 2. And then you just never were. I was able to defend the marker to the point that you were never able to get to it throughout the course of the game, and Big Vic was down the whole
Like
time.
turn 2, I could have popped her out, but instead, so we had all of our symbols, and I had Deso Engine unable to get an attack on anyone turn 1. But I'm like, well, I can't leave him in the backfield to pop out to break this symbol, and he couldn't with the 50 mil base. I physically couldn't get there, so I had triple walked him because he was fast from the student. around, basically next to a symbol that he was going to pick up that Ava Haven Hand was also right by. So I had one initiative, just I think off the flip, turn 2, and it was a question of I can go with a Taylor and pop the leader back out, Big Vic. And I'm like, well, that doesn't probably do me any good because she comes back at 2 wounds and then dies.
Yeah,
and I'm like, well, right. So I'm like, well, I can wait. I have to do this. So then I'm able to go with Deso Engine, who was distracted at this point, but whatever. He had like 4 focus, or, that's an exaggeration. He had a bunch of focus. At that point, he picks up the marker, charges Ava, and is able to do, 4 damage to her, I think?
Yeah, he knocked her down to, I think, 3 wounds. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right. So he got in, puts pressure on, at the time, the primary point scorer, for Ivan. That's how you're going to get that first symbol point. Your symbol point is Ava. So I was feeling pretty good, and I figured I'll be able to pop the shadow marker and get her back. And unfortunately, you sat on it that I couldn't. There's no way for me to do it, and then she stayed buried the entire game.
Yeah, I think what ended up happening was my choice on first activation was, well, he already scored his point with the Deso. The Deso's activated. I should kill it, but I don't really need to worry about it this turn. So the choice was either activate with Ivan, summon something in base contact with the Deso engine, and then try to put some damage on Vic 2.
Right.
Or go with Mordrake and do like a super inefficient thing with him and walk charge to get 1 attack on Taylor and tie her down so that she couldn't deal with the Vic, or so that she couldn't get to the shadow marker rather. And if I recall correctly, that's what I ended up doing, and it worked out because you weren't able to get to the shadow marker that Big Vic was under, and then the rest of the turn kind of played out.
So when we were talking initially and we were doing the setup portion of this, and I had brought up Mad Dog, and part of his appeal being blow it to hell, you can get rid of markers from a range. This is exactly what I was thinking about when I was saying taking Mad Dog, because I've seen it before in action, because Jesse played the snot out of this crew. And just being able to get that marker without having to expend a ton of AP trying to get to the marker and remove it, I found to be huge. So anything that has blow it to hell or something like that is going to be extremely, extremely beneficial when playing these games.
And, knowing that now that he can basically do the Euripides trick of bury a model within the marker, and it's perma-buried until the shadow is busted. Knowing that kind of makes Mad Dog like a permanent auto-include, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's basically the 11 stone tax for playing into Umbra.
Right. And
well,
then it's like,
I don't know
well,
about that,
I guess I have to, but like my main reason I didn't want to bring him is with all the concealing, I'm either focus shooting with him, which is not like Mad Dog only taking 1 shot in a turn feels really bad because he's severe 5. Focus doesn't do a ton for him, Like, I'm happy to just hit you at min 3 times a turn. That's the optimal scenario here. And with all the concealing, I'm having to stone for positives constantly with him, which the Vics are the most glass cannons. You need stones to keep the Vics operational. Granted, they didn't operate, period, but in practice, in general, you need the stones to prevent them from getting blown over in the wind because they are literally paper thin. So that's where that trade-off was, and I traded wrong.
Well, so here's the thing, and this kind of gets back to what you were just talking about the whole getting like 1 focus shot a turn. So I've played a couple of games against bandits with this crew,
Mm-hmm.
and Blow It to Hell. I said before it's the 11 stone outcast tax for playing into Ivan, but in retrospect, kind of thinking back to my games, Mad Dog didn't really do a whole lot in any of the 2 or 3 games that I played against him with Umbra, because it's exactly what you just said. Like, he ends up getting engaged at 1 inch. His melee is a 0 inch, and like,
Mhm.
sure, he can walk up and push you away, and then you get a free shot, but then you're having to deal with concealment. So now you're taking a free shot, and you may or may not have focus. So you're going to end up missing. He's just. I feel like Blow It to Hell is great, but I don't think that in this matchup it justifies the other, 8 stones worth of value, or whatever you want to value Blow It to Hell at. So I don't know. I'd have to think hard about that.
If there's a read that you're hiring in BB and Calypso into Ivan, because that's one of the big hotness with explorers right now, is they're stupid good at 10 stones. So if I think you're hiring in them, well, okay, Mad Dog makes sense because he's one of the only efficient ways you can screw over Calypso. Now, Ivan doesn't really feel like you need that engine right there, not engine, but that piece right there, because his stuff is really good on its own, and you don't have a huge incentive of going out of keyword unless it's a very specific reason. Your bellhop pushing of Ivan example, like, that makes sense, but just taking 10 stones for Calypso and BB when it doesn't do you a ton in this pool and this scenario. And like in other explorers crew, Mad Dog is probably the go-to because armor ignoring and BB's going to be in their list, or Calypso's going to be in the list. But in this, it doesn't feel great.
Yeah, I think Hans is the better pick, and you took Hans, and I mean
Yeah,
he maybe didn't perform quite as well as Hans typically does in my experience, but he still did some real work, and I think he did more work than Mad Dog would have in this game.
right. Well, and that was the he ignores the concealing and he can reach out and touch you from so far away. Like the game plan, which was what happened, is Student of Conflict from turn 2 onwards sits next to him and just feeds him fast, and he'll shoot anything that comes near. I at the end of turn 2, even though I had lost the big Vic and the second Vic was more or less not doing anything, I was able to kill Ava. I knew I was giving up the symbol I had put directly there for you to leap to and pick up. I knew that was going to happen, but I figured if I can trade 1 point for Ava, and the rest of my crew is designed to kill things, the Deso and the Vix are there to murder you. If they murder you, and I've only given up 1 symbol, I win. Like that period, I'll win. So trading a point for Ava worked really well. Now, that was my shining moment of the game, where I already had focus because I was fast. So, and from the previous turn I was fast, I think, is how it worked out. Either way, I only had 1 focus to use in 2 actions. So I spend the focus, take the shot to get around your flexible morals, and I'm able to hit you for damage that puts you to 1 wound.
Yeah, I think you hit me for like severe or something.
Yeah.
It only took 1 shot to kill her, and basically once Hans got deployed down there, I knew I was only going to get 1 point out of Eva that game.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like, all right, well, whatever. She's going to get me a point.
And it was hilarious because this was the last activation of the turn. Just Ava, or just Hans. And I have 9 cards left. I need the second, like she was at 1 wound then, right? And I needed to hit her, but I didn't have any cards in hand. So it was literally, well, it's going to be a minus flip, 9 cards left. Well, I still have the red Joker in my deck. YOLO, take the shot, flip the red Joker on the guaranteed kill, because I'd seen my black Joker, I think, on the defense of one of the Vix at the top of the, early in turn 1. So it was as long as I hit you, it was a guaranteed kill. And I kill her at the end of round 1. Which, even losing the Vic, in essence, I felt pretty good going into that was round 2. Going into round 3, I felt pretty good, even though I was effectively down a master.
Yeah, I mean, like, turn 1, the game was leaning real hard towards me because
Yeah.
I had, Master Vic at 1 wounds and buried. Taylor was way back out of position, like, way far away from my crew, so she wasn't really very threatening. Little Vic was in trouble, and I knew that I was gonna be able to kill her that turn. Like, Corvus was covering the top flank. I was like, "Alright, cool, so he's gonna get a point for the symbol." Eva's probably dead, but I'll get a point out of her, and we're in a good place right now.
Yeah.
And turn 2 leaned pretty heavily towards you, even though I did manage to kill Little Vic.
Right.
Yeah, like you ended up scoring a symbol. I couldn't deal with the Deso engine, so it ended up being in a dangerous position for turn 3 because it
Mhm.
could basically reach out and touch anything in my crew.
Yeah.
Um, at
Uh,
that point, I was like, "Ooh, I don't know."
right. And Taylor was freed up then, basically on the center point to just decide where she wanted to go and run around. Uh, and I was able to slip by Corvus with Big Jake to set up to get a symbol guaranteed on turn 3. And Deso Engine was ready to, I think he could just walk charge Gibson at that point as well for turn 3. So like I came into turn 3 feeling really good. And then it just kind of like the turn kind of played out without any definitiveness, I think.
No, so turn 3, I think, was one of the deciding moments of the game. So, I won initiative turn 3, if I recall correctly. I think it was the only turn that I won initiative,
Mm-hmm.
and you had Taylor close to the center point, and you had the Deso engine, down in kind of the bottom part of the
The
map
bottom, yeah.
with nothing to threaten
Oh,
it.
right. Yes, I'm
Right.
misremembering my
So,
turns. Yes.
Ivan activated first turn or first activation. He hit Taylor twice. I did not summon off of her. I ended up hitting her
Right.
with the shadow pin trigger twice, which I dropped her to 1 wound and I staggered her. So she was
Yeah.
really slow, even with rush. And I had to make the decision. I was like, do I take the kill shot on Taylor or do I do something to try and deal with the Deso
Right.
engine?
Yeah.
And I took the risk of shooting the Deso engine, clipping it, holding the high enough card that I could summon, and then bringing in a Brock Inspector next to it instead of killing Taylor.
Right. Yeah.
And I feel like that was at the moment, it felt like it might have been the wrong call because I knew Taylor could still get to me because of rush,
Right.
but it locked up the Deso engine until much later in the turn when you were able to try and kind of break it free with by your side with the student.
Student. Yeah.
But at that point, I was able to move around my stuff so that I didn't have my botanist exposed. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have, and I think you ended up going after Gibson with Taylor. And at that point in the game, I didn't really care about Gibson. He wasn't really going to do that much more for me anyway.
Yeah.
So like losing him to her at the top of turn 4 because he was literally the only target she could get to didn't make a difference. But costing the Deso engine the momentum and the AP to prevent it from just smashing up my botanist or smashing up or getting into melee with what's it call it Ivan was the right call.
Yeah. And that was one. It was very interesting play because I could have um gone. Taylor, I had made fast at
Hmm.
turn. I think. Yeah, because
She was fast. Yeah,
yeah,
she was fast.
because there was already a scheme marker out, so I was able to walk the student up fast her and still bonus action yank Deso away from the summon. But it's like I could charge backwards with Taylor and clip Botanist, who I thought you might have claim jump on at that point, you know. But I'm like, well, I don't think you have claim jump on it, and I can't, you're using it in some way to score a symbol, which is guaranteed because there was like 3 different ways you can move it around, even while engaged, that you was guaranteed. So I'm like, well, I can take the damage on Gibson because he's an important piece that's kind of locking in your backfield. Which I think was the wrong choice on my part. I probably should have gone for the YOLO swings on the botanist or Ivan himself. gotten, a swing on Ivan. I would have had to walk, charge Ivan, I think, because of the severe. But at least I'm applying pressure. I don't think that also would have done me any good, but it might have felt better at the time.
Yeah, I think that killing the botanist would have changed the game, because the botanist on turn 2 ended up I'm sorry, at the top of turn 3, before Taylor got to activate, it ended up moving to the center lane to block off Taylor's ability to break
The
Big Vic
marker.
out of the
Yeah.
prison. And then on turns 3 and 4, it ended up scoring me 2 symbols points.
Yeah.
So being able to kill it so that you could then break Big Vic out and denying me the ability to get those 2 symbols points would have been huge.
Yeah. And I think I wasn't confident enough in the being able to kill it right away that, if I charge backwards into it and I hit you, because I didn't have very good cards at this point. It's like I hit you maybe once, because at that point you were defense 6 or 7. I don't remember
I was defense
exactly.
6 at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
didn't I didn't grow until I didn't get the second grow token until Mordrake activated on turn
right.
3.
So, I'm still at a +1, but if I don't kill you, you still get the points. And I've now taken this model out of anywhere that's actively useful. Like next turn, if it's on some miracle surviving when there's 2 other models nearby that could kill her, maybe she does something, but unlikely. Or I charge her into Gibson, she should live, realistically. And then I still have her for the next turn with the Deso engine ready to go into your, into Ivan. So it probably was the wrong call, but at the time it felt like the right decision.
Yeah, and I would say for anybody who's playing into Explorer Society, if you see a botanist on the other side of the table, the best advice that I can give you is just engage it,
Mm-hmm.
because it doesn't have a way to get out of engagement and still scheme. If it uses onward, it doesn't just move, it takes the walk action. So it can't get out of engagement with onward. It has to disengage using one of its AP, and then if it disengages, it can't interact. So even if you don't think you can kill it, it does not have a very threatening melee attack, so it's not really going to deal that much damage back to you.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you don't think you can kill it, just engage it, and it's probably not going to be able to do its job.
Okay. So it sounds to me, Brian, that a lot of this was just new crew you're playing against. A lot of, I don't want to say gotcha moments, but just not being familiar with the opposing crew, right?
So I was thinking about this a lot after, and when we ended the game, the immediate gut was Ivan's fucking broken. This is dumb, and I I thought about it, and I I honestly don't think it was really Ivan's really strong. The summon mechanic and the way, manipulating the positives is really good. Don't get me wrong. Like Ivan MVP hardcore did phenomenal work. Like he won the game on his own and the rest of the crew was basically just fluff that he allowed to function. But I think the biggest thing is not so much that Ivan is like this broken, insane thing, though hidden agenda is really annoying and dumb.
Yeah, we're going to
Just
talk
gonna
about that, I'm sure.
stick that in there real quick. It's that the mercenary keyword just isn't good. That they don't really have guns. Like technically the Vix have guns, but you don't really want to be using them realistically. I have Hans. I hired in Hans. I chose not to bring Vanessa. That might have been wrong, but again, the concealing issue, it's the same as why Mad Dog probably wasn't good. But I have to engage you. And the Vix, once you take off all the fluff of the speed and whatever, they're defense 6, 8 wound models with stones. And once you start attacking them, they fold, because unless you're bringing outside healing. Vanessa, a librarian, they only heal when they kill things. Well, they normally need at minimum 2 attacks to kill something, and they heal 2. But most damage they take will be 2 damage. So I remove an entire model from my opponent, and I heal 1 attack from Ivan, or 1 attack from a normal model. Now, if I'm stoning, that damage obviously starts changing. And I was stoning, but irreducible damage, they can't do anything about it. Hit me with 2 damage a bunch, and they fold. And I think it's a failing on them. Like, they have to shed so much damage to get to you. And then if there's severe terrain, I can't do it. So I'm going to spend 2 turns just getting shot to death, or Ivan weird energy pulse. I don't know. It's not a gun, but you know what I mean. I'm going to get pulsed to death from Ivan, and I'm never actually going to be able to do anything. Like, yeah, I can kill your summons when you do 2 damage to me and place a Deva on top of me, which also hits me for 2 damage on top of the 2 damage I take from Ivan, and I can't kill a Deva with 1 attack. So I think it's, to sum up that long-winded rant, it's a failing of the mercenary keyword, not Ivan being crazy strong.
Yeah, and I feel like to that point, like Ivan and the Umbra keyword are a pretty good counter to the Merc keyword.
Yes.
Specifically because Ivan can hand out staggered like candy, and the Merc keyword really, really, really hates staggered.
Right.
Especially the Vix. And if you give me a willpower 6 model that I can summon off of that's anywhere close to the Vix, now I've got a withering away aura so that they can't heal. And if the Vix are
Yep.
staggered and they can't heal, they're in big trouble.
And that was when, like, the Bracken Spectre you summoned, I killed it with a Vic. But the way timing works, at least how we ruled it, and I'm pretty sure this is the correct way, I kill you, I would heal, but your model is still on the table, so I don't heal, and we remove it then. So I didn't get the heal when I killed your Bracken, which, is bad. And then if you summon, like, so the only one you can summon a Bracken off of is Taylor. Oh, and Deso and Hans. Deso I didn't really care about. Deso was supposed to die at some point. He's the big beat stick. And Hans, if you're summoning off of Hans, I've very much lost the game. I've lost the game at that point.
I'm so far into your lines that it doesn't
Right.
matter.
But, normally you're summoning a Deva, which against most crews is probably fine. But against me, then my Vix are going to defense 5.
Right.
8 wound masters. And
right.
They die. They fucking die.
Yeah. Not only that, but if the Deva manages to survive the turn that it gets summoned, all of a sudden you've got something that can mimic your own Vix very threatening attack against their defense 5.
Right.
Maybe 4 wounds left at that point.
Which you didn't even get to do because I killed the Deva you summoned turn 2. But like, that same principle is right there. Like, I don't have, and this AP idea, I don't have the AP to do it. Now, that very much could be problems with the list, but the Deso engine, I still stand by, was a good idea. The Student of Conflict makes Hans work and Deso work. And Hans, I do think, he makes you have to at least play around the board, which I need.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the most impactful models that you took this game were the Student, Hans, and the Deso.
Right.
So I would tend to agree. I mean, Taylor did a lot of work. I don't think she was a bad pick at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a weird crew, but the models that you picked for good reason, and I do feel like they fulfilled the roles that they were intended to fulfill.
That takes me to, like, Big Jake and the Desperate Merc, who the Desperate Merc was there to be expendable because it was either hire in a full costed model and have 3 soul stones for Vix and Taylor, which I can't do that. See all of the previous points. or throw in an in-keyword junk model for an activation. Maybe I'll get a meme shot off for 4 damage because I focused and popped someone, and it'd be funny, and I can talk about it at a bar, you know? And Big Jake's just decent for scheming because spread them out and claiming a symbol. I can sneak him along. You can kill him, but if you're using Ivan to kill him, I'm probably fine with that because he's literally running on the edge of the board, and your summon's going to be at the edge of the board.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily know that the entirety of the crew was hired optimally, but I will say that the models that you took, for the reasons that you took them, did the jobs that
Yeah.
you expected them to.
Yeah. And it's
So.
one like I don't know what I could have taken instead that would have made the Vix playable into this. You know, like that, I think that's the real crux of it. I could have taken a ton of other things instead of Merc and Big Jake. That's 9 stones right there. I don't know what I could have taken that would have actually mattered to affect the problems the Vic have.
So I would say, and this is not necessarily to alleviate the problems that the Vix had, and like Taylor did a lot of work, so it's tough to say that she didn't do enough. But I was talking to Adam a little bit, and I feel like Eric is actually one of the best models that Outcasts have to deal with Umbra.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you kind of talked about him a little bit before, where like he could be kind of a liability, like blah blah, all the reasons that you said,
Yeah.
but his gravity well aura is so enormously oppressive against Ivan because of the way that my summon works. And he's also
Mm-hmm.
one of the few models in the faction that has the capability of killing my summons with one swing. Um, and I don't have a great way to deal with armor aside from Brock Inspectors. And sure, Brock Inspectors are threatening to him, but I'm also never going to be able to summon one on him or within 6 inches of him.
Right.
So do you think that the game would have been different if you had taken Eric instead of either the Deso engine or Taylor?
Right. Which it very well it might have because Deso engine and the upgrade are that's only a 1 stone difference on Eric because Deso engine is 10 soul stones for some reason. Don't I'm not going to get started on that. I'll never shut up about Deso engine being bad. But so in list building, like Eric was one of the immediate things that popped in my head. Like I talked to some people in the Swamp Feeds Discord, some of my friends who play all in the Schemes and Stones kind of circle, and they all, oh, you take Eric, why are you being a fucking dumbass? And I kind of, it was like a mind game. I'm like, well, he's the obvious choice, right? And I have personal feelings about him being bad that I've talked about to the end of days on Schemes and Stones that I don't really need to go into again. People are sick of it. But because he's the obvious choice, I assumed you, Jesse, were just going to hire in a Brock Inspector, maybe 2. And then your Brock Inspector just kills him. Because at that point, I'm a defense 5, 8 wound henchman against irreducible damage, and you 2-shot him. Or 3-shot him realistically, some combination of you ping him down to death with your Brock Inspector. So I didn't take him, figuring you were gonna assume I took him, and you hire in Brocken, who are just like good models. And that then combined with my bad experiences with him of just him never functioning the way he should, I'm biased against him, so I didn't bring him.
Yeah, so hot take on my part. I don't think Brocken are ever worth hiring. Personally, they're very good. I know they're very good models. They're very good models. I will give them that. They are very good models that have a 2-3-4 irreducible, but 2-3-4 damage track.
Mhm.
They do have the capability of a pseudo leap on a suit that's not built in, with a resistible ability, and they have no way of getting that suit in their move 4. So basically, I'm probably if I hire them, especially in standard deployment, I'm probably going to spend their first turn walking twice and doing nothing else.
Mhm.
Second turn, I'm going to walk charge because nobody's going to put themselves within charge range of a Brocken. If they maybe put themselves in range of the Brocken's ability that has the pseudo leap built in, which I'm forgetting the name of it, so just bear
Envelop
with
in
me.
shadow. Yeah.
Yeah. So if they happen to put themselves in range of the Brocken Spectre for envelop in shadow, like great, maybe I'll be able to get the leap off. It is resistible.
Mhm.
Targeting move, willpower, a stat 5, so it's going to be resistible on average, average
Right. Yeah.
nothing too crazy. And unless I get the high enough mask to guarantee it, my Brocken's just going to end up losing more AP, and I'm probably only dealing 1 damage to you with it, or maybe even no damage to you with
Right.
it if you're at
Yeah.
6 inches away.
That makes sense.
So people talk about hiring Brocken. Maybe if it's like Wedge and I'm not playing a crew like the Vix that I know we're going to be up in my face and I'm going to have to deploy back to protect my crew. Maybe, but I can't fathom any situation that I hire a Brocken for the reason that I just illustrated.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense.
So hot takes on top of hot takes. I don't think Mercenaries is as bad as you're saying.
Yeah.
I really don't. I do think they have some game. I mean, obviously, a lot of it is 2E Vic hangover. They just don't do the same thing. They're extremely mobile, but they don't hold up. You just kind of have to. They're all sacrificial. They're all, they're all expendable, and you just have to play your game that you're going to play.
Mhm.
I don't think that you're really rating Dua right either, because I think Dua is immediately like S tier. I think Dua is
Oh,
100% top tier.
I totally think they're incredibly strong. Like I should make very clear. They're really, really good.
They're extremely versatile. They don't have a lot of weak points, and you're going to hear it first here. They do have some hard counters. Frycore, hard counter to Dua. Extremely hard counter to Dua.
Yeah, we've talked about that briefly, and I'm sure that that's something that we can talk about on a further episode of the pod.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to talk about what we view it as counters to some of the new ES stuff.
After playing against it, my kind of immediate gut take was Bandit. Not because Mad Dog is in keyword, but I get running gun. So like we're both ranged. You're not really a ranged crew. You're a ranged master with a melee centric crew. But I have positive flip. So that I don't need to worry about shedding damage as I come into you because I'm dealing damage as I come into you. And that trade-off, I think Bandit comes out in ahead, assuming you don't get some crazy kill or, whatever. You can't summon Brocken unless you're shooting Parker. And you're fast enough with Parker, you can make sure that doesn't happen unless the duo player has to do something crazy, a ton of setup and I can play around it. Yeah, so like my immediate like counter pick was Bandits. And obviously Levy doesn't need to be said that Levy is just probably the correct choice, period, to handle him. But
surprise,
right, like that's the largest failing of the faction, that everything else is comparatively so bad. Well, unless it's a very specific situation, thunders, resers, anti-demise tech, things like that, you always just go to Levy. Like that's what you do, unless you don't want to play Levy or there's a specific reason why Levy is bad. In this pool, Levy's perfectly fine. He's great in symbols. Assassinate, perfectly fine. And he can handle your bullshit. He's going to snipe you off.
He's kind of frankly, he's kind of like the total, I don't know about the total, but he is a strong counter to Umbra because yes, he's willpower 6 or greater, so I can summon Brocken off of him, but he has a mechanic in his crew that can reduce irreducible damage with Marlena Webster.
Yep.
He's willpower 7, which means he's one stat up on Ivan, so I'm going to have a tough time clipping him in the first place. His irreducible damage gets around Ivan's only defensive tech.
Right.
And like, sure, I can hit from in 3, but yeah, like, who cares?
Yeah, just bury him.
Yeah.
Just bury him.
Yeah.
Just put him in a shadow marker and sit on it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's really hard. So I will say,
Apparently
I
not.
did it.
He just did it.
No, well, so here's the deal. Here's the deal, and I've said this before. The burying in the shadow marker thing is very good. It is hard to set up, and it is unreliable. It literally it happened because I flipped the crow that I needed. I didn't have the crow in my hand. The problem is that it competes with the same suit that Ivan needs for his summon.
Yeah, but Ivan can use stones to get his off. So if you have a high crow in your hand, you can just save it for that and have
He can.
Ivan
He
use the
can.
crow.
You're right. But so suffice it to say, like, I have to, in order to get the summon, or in order to get the berry, I have to have a shadow marker in base contact with you, which, to be fair, Mordrake can do with one of his other attacks, but only if he gets another suit. I think he needs a tome for it. So if I'm holding a high tome and a high crow, yeah, I can spend both of my attacks hitting you to drop a shadow marker, to hit you, to bury you.
It's a lot of
But
setup.
that's a lot of setup. It's a lot of high cards.
But I mean, is it really? Because you could ultimately you're going to get something into Levy's face. You're going to do a throwaway model. You're going to get a Dava in his face, right? Now he has to deal with the Dava. He kills the Dava. He drops a shadow marker, and then Ivan just buries him with that shadow marker. You have the tools to tie him up all the time, so he's attacking worthless. He's attacking worthless models, and then when he does kill those models, he's setting himself up to get buried.
I'm not necessarily able to tie him up with worthless models all the time because my ability to summon off of Levy is very limited because of his willpower 7, and the way that the Ivan summon works. And one of the things, I won't necessarily say that it balances it, because I'm not to the point that I don't necessarily think that it's a balanced summon ability yet. I'm still working my way through that. But if I'm summoning off of something, I am engaged with that thing, and none of my summons, aside from Nocturnes with an AP, have the ability to get themselves out of engagement with the model that they're summoned next to. So I'm either attacking Levy, who's a stat up on me, and hoping that I have a high enough card to summon, or I'm attacking something else and I'm not able to get to Levy.
Yeah. And in this specific situation, it was something we kind of glossed over with turn 1. By like maybe not even a third of the way through turn 1, both of our hands were empty. We both dunked our hands turn 1 doing shit. So for most of the turn, we were basically top decking, and I didn't flip high enough on the defense of the Vic, and Jesse flipped the suit he needed, and it was higher than whatever I flipped, that he was able to do it. And
I think I flipped like a 10 crow or something like
right.
that. I don't know what you flipped, but I hit a high enough number and I hit the suit, and I was like, oh shit, you're
right.
buried.
Like it was, at least my interpretation on it, correct me if I'm wrong, it wasn't like that was the plan. It was I want to kill the Vic. Oh, I can't kill you, but I can bury you instead because I top decked it.
Exactly. And maybe it's me just deciding that the number of resources, AP, and setup to try and get the berry off is not worth it most of the time, so not actually trying for it. But in all of the games that I have played with Umbra, which I think this was like game number 9, so I'm not like a 20+ game kind of person with the crew. In 9 games, I've only actually gotten the berry to go off twice, and including this one.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I mean, ultimately, it was what it was.
It was. It had a huge impact on the game. I'm not saying it's bad. It's super powerful, but I don't think it's as oppressive as it looks, and it's by no stretch of the imagination as good as Thunesberry.
So
yes,
I think we've determined if you had more experience with this crew, it'd be a different game. Might not be a totally different result, but at least you would know what was coming for you. You'd be able to counter it with.
Yeah, I think it would have been tighter, and I probably score 1, maybe 2 more points, but Jesse, I don't think he maxes out. I think you get 6 if I have a little bit more understanding and I at least have 1 Vic function for
Yeah. I mean, I was expecting a 6 or 7 to 4 game,
Yes. Yeah.
and it went 8-3.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that about wraps it up. I think we've beaten this thing to death. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we didn't talk about wait. Hold on. We didn't talk about
hidden agenda.
what do you think of Hidden Agenda, Brian? I think you have
Okay.
some strong feelings about Hidden Agenda.
So I had thought this through to come up with like a kind of concise reasoning on it, and I should have written it down. Better. The cheating, the double cross is like, I'm fine, whatever. Like, it's cute. It's not that big of a deal, I think, because at least the way I interpret it, because I treat double cross similar to how Pride, the Crossroads henchman in Outcast, lets me always cheat second. In my head, it's kind of that same principle of you cheating secretly is the same as me always going second on cheat. If you're willing to cheat a card, you're probably gonna win the duel, right? Because it doesn't make sense to cheat a low card just to mindfuck me, because you have TNs, you have discard effects. There's like in M3E as a whole, cards almost always serve a purpose for just as a pure resource of blocking an execute or discarding for flurry, something like that. It's the the cheating face down is annoying. It's cute, but you did it like I think twice with on an attack from Ivan, right? And I'm like, I wasn't gonna cheat anyway. Like, you're gonna hit. You're attacking me with your gun and setting up for a summon. I assume you have it. Otherwise, you're probably just like dicking around. It's not worth it. I'll let it go. Backup plan though makes, because it's any opposed duel, right? So Ivan just he's attacking me. I either let him hit me for between min 2 and min 3 if he has the concealing trigger, the whatever his trigger is to do extra damage. Yeah.
Shadow Pen. Yep.
Or you shoot me, I cheat around it. You still hit me when you cheat above me with your built-in baked-in triggers to do extra damage, because that's how Ivan works. And I gave you a free point of damage and spent a card. Like,
Right.
it's so efficient while punishing the opponent for showing up to the game. That's the one I have a problem with.
Right. And the other thing I would say, and it didn't happen in our game, but it has happened for me in the past, where both me and my opponent, because of the way that Ivan summon works, it's not like you're declaring the summon action with like Sandeep or Summer or any other summoner,
Right.
where you can only declare the action once a turn. You don't actually have to decide if you're going to summon until you know that you're hitting.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is, we both flip. Let's say we both flip low cards. Okay, we're like, all right, well, my opponent flipped a like a 6, and I flipped a 5. I'm still hitting him. He's going to have to cheat to get out of it. All right,
Right.
cool. So my opponent says, well, if I cheat, I'm going to take a damage. I have to cheat. I cheat a face down card. My opponent's like, well, it's probably a 12 or a 13 because he's going to go for his intercision trigger, and he's already got a crow from shooting through concealing.
Yep.
I'm just going to let it go. And then, so they don't cheat because they don't want to take damage. I end up revealing my card, and I've cheated like a 4 of crows. So now
Right.
I've hit you, dealt 2 damage because I'm probably going to hit minimum because I've tied you, or I'm going to be on a negative
Right.
flip at best. And I get to declare a summon without spending any resources of consequence. I haven't spent a high card. I haven't spent a stone. And
Yeah.
I feel like the way that Hidden Agenda works on Ivan, while that's not necessarily going to happen every game, he's disincentivizing my opponent from cheating. And my opponent cheating is the only way that they can prevent me from getting my summons off because of the way that his mechanic works.
And not only Not only that, you're also cheating face down too. So whatever they are cheating is going to have to be significant. So now they're wasting cards.
Right, and that's the thing. Like, so now I cheat a 4 of crows, knowing that if my opponent doesn't cheat, I'm going to get my summon off and I'm going to deal damage to them. And they think I cheated a high card, so they throw like a 13, and I'm like, all right, you missed.
Take a damage.
Take a damage,
Right.
and you burned a high card.
Yeah.
So,
and I think it's in conjunction. That's where the cheating face down becomes problematic. Is if I cheat to resist you, I take the damage, and it's like if you're worried about hard to kill, just bring hidden agenda. Like Taylor would have done much more, like attacking Ivan, if I knew I was always gonna, like, if that wasn't a problem, because like once she got low on wounds, like she's sitting at 2 wounds. Well, you attack me, I can cheat and take a damage and go to 1 and proc hard to kill, or I let you hit me, go to 1, and you still have a guaranteed kill, because if you shoot me and I cheat to get around it, I still die.
right, it turns into a no-win situation where I can fake into cheating a high I can fake you out and make you think that I'm cheating a high card to hit you and still punish you for cheating against the 1 that I actually threw down on the table. It's a very, I feel like it's, people are not giving the upgrade its due, and I feel like Ivan turns the upgrade up to 11 in a way that I don't think many other Explorers models do.
Because he needed the help,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's dirty. It's dirty. It was dirty when it was on Lynch too, last edition, when they brought it in towards the end. It was just, it's always been a dirty.
Yeah, and dirty I think Double Cross on its own, if you take backup plan out, I think Double Cross like, it's annoying, but it's not breaking anything. It's good, but you're spending 2 soul stones for it. Like, that fine. It's that conjunction with backup plan. Backup plan's the problem here. Of, hey, you want to play the game, take damage, is what backup plan is reduced down to, and that feels really bad.
I feel like it's funny because I feel I get what you're saying, and I'm not trying to like knock this upgrade or say that it's broken or anything. I feel like if you had either double cross or backup plan, it would be very good and probably still worth it.
I agree.
Probably still worth it. The combination of the two is what really does you in. And it's not like you can't really change one of them to the minion ability because you don't want, I mean, I guess if you put time to act as the non-minion ability, then there would be less incentive to put it on a master because they can't gain fast anyway.
Right.
So in Ivan's case specifically, making him lose either backup plan or double cross probably means that I don't take the upgrade on him.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have the possibility of putting fast on henchmen, enforcers.
Yeah, like you give any of these abilities to like Macallen, and like holy, like Macallen, if he's engaging you, you have to target him. Oh, cheat, take a damage. Like, like I think this is a problem just in general because Macallen is a model in the game.
Right. I will say that there might only be one card or upgrade that has given me more delight as the player using them than Hidden Agenda, and that's 12 cups of coffee in
Fuck that upgrade.
in Bayou. But like the level of like when I use Hidden Agenda or 12 cups of coffee, I feel like a Reddit shit poster.
Yeah,
must be. Like, it's amazing.
That upgrade is just so triggering. It's full blown triggering. I'm not even gonna like lie to you. I hate that upgrade.
We'll talk about that on another show.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that pretty much wraps up the game. Unless you had anything else to add, Brian.
Well, yeah, I was gonna keep talking about the upgrade because I had some more things occur to me about it. In Cabness, you slap it on the totems from the shadows that give out parasite tokens. So like they have to fight, like resist it, right? So it's just free damage. Either you gain a parasite token because my stat 4 attack gives you a parasite token, or you cheat to get over it and just take a damage. And they're totems, like they're eight wound totems that your opponent literally has to kill or they lose.
And they get the minion ability. Not that it's probably going to come into play that often, but yeah, that's kind of funny.
Yeah, like 2 stones, and you make these things like they're already scary, legitimately scary.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate this upgrade. God damn it!
Yeah, so we're probably going to tear apart ES and look at some counter picks and counter plays and stuff like that in a future episode. But hey, you know what? This was a great experience with you guys. I'm thankful that you guys decided to do this with us. Like I said, we've known you guys a long time, so being able to do this cross promotion with you, an established podcast, and just really help us get our name out there. I greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it was great. And we have to do a rematch now because you swept us.
Yeah, we got the clean sweep.
Yeah. So that
Sweep
just
away.
means we have to do this again for the round 2.
Yeah, hopefully
once we train up.
Hopefully, when the world opens up, we can have that. We're gonna have we're looking at doing like a podcast invitational and getting all the podcasts.
That'd be so awesome. Oh, I'm in. Hell yeah.
So
Be pretty dope.
we'll have to do that. But Jesse, you got anything else?
No, that pretty much wraps it up for me.
Brian, anything else?
Just everyone, make sure you're downloading Boring Conversation and Schemes and Stones. Schemes and Stones, we have the Discord page, the Facebook as well. Come chat, hang out, tell us what we did right or wrong. I'm sure there's a lot of wrong. At least I've been told I've been wrong on a lot of things. So just keep spreading the community and getting the word about Malifaux out there.
Amen, brother. Okay, well, as always, happy flipping and keep all your conversations boring.
And as always, stay weird, folks.
Hey, and welcome back to Boring Conversation. I'm going to be the host for today, Adam Talbot, and I am here with Brian from Schemes and Stones and with my co-host Jesse, and they played a special. All right, we're going to edit that. They played a game for our. God, I'm brain farting like a motherfucker right now. It's, you know what it is? It's early is the problem. I'm usually up later.
Take a drink.
I do have a drink. All right. And we're going to start again. 3, 2, 1.